The bailiff called the room to order, and every head turned when I stepped through the swinging gate. I felt the old weight of the law settle on my shoulders, the way a winter coat settles on bone. My name is Grace Monroe, 58, former trial attorney who meant to leave the courtroom behind for good. I run a secondhand bookshop now. I stack paperbacks, brew burnt coffee, and tell myself I'm done fighting. But I was never any good at lying to myself. Judge Morales looked up, and the color left his face. "Counsel, is that you?" His voice softened on the last word, as if we were standing in a church and he'd just seen a ghost. Across the aisle, Cassandra Blake folded her arms, the glint of her bracelet catching the fluorescent light. Beside her, the man in the sharp suit, her attorney, smiled like a cat that had already swallowed the canary. My son sat in the front row, the wheels of his chair tucked tight against the bench. Ethan kept his eyes on the floor. He does that now when rooms fill with pity. I moved to the counsel table. The varnish was scratched, the edge nicked by years of elbows and nerves. I placed a single folder there and rested my hand on it like you might steady a frightened animal. The room smelled faintly of copy toner and cold air. "Ms. Monroe," the judge said, gathering himself, "we were told you left the bar." "I did," I said, "until my family needed me more than my pride." Cassandra's laugh was small and sharp. "This is going to be fun." I looked at her, then at my son, then at the child's drawing peeking from the pocket of his sweater, crayon lines of a house with a blue door. There are places you draw when you're 8 years old because you want somewhere safe to put your heart. I picked up the folder. "Your Honor," I said, "I'm here to defend what's left of ours." The judge nodded. "Then let's begin." 2 weeks earlier, I stood behind the counter of my bookshop, humming with the bell above the door, believing endings could be gentle if you kept your head down and your hands busy. I was wrong. The bell above my bookstore door rang twice, once for the cold air, once for my son. Ethan guided his wheelchair through the frame like he'd done it 100 times. He hated help, but I still reached out to hold the door because that's what mothers do, no matter how old their children get. He parked by the window, where travel guides stood like reminders of a life that used to fit him. Before the accident, he dreamed of hiking trails, camping under skies without limits. Now he just looked at the covers. His hands rested on the chair's rims, thin but steady. I poured him coffee from the pot I kept on the warmer. "How's therapy?" I asked. He forced a half smile. "I stood for 30 seconds today. With help? That counts, right?" "It counts," I said, even though we both knew 30 seconds isn't much of a victory. The smell of paper and cinnamon filled the shop, warm and familiar. He slid a folded paper across the counter. I didn't need to open it to know it was a bill. "Cassandra thinks we should sell the house," he said. My stomach tightened. "You bought that place before you married her. She says we paid some utilities together. She thinks that makes it ours." "Ours," I repeated quietly. The word used to mean family. Now it sounded like a lawsuit. I took a breath. "Where is she today?" "Out," he said, eyes flat. "She's always out lately." The bell rang again, and Mrs. Lee, one of my regulars, came in searching for another mystery novel with a kind detective. I helped her, smiled when she left, then turned back to Ethan, who was staring at the paper as if numbers could rewrite a life. "I can talk to someone," I said, "just to see what your options are." He shook his head. "Mom, no, I don't want you fighting my battles." "Then whose battles are they?" I asked softly. He didn't answer. The silence was heavy enough to count as one. That evening, I drove him home in my old station wagon. Snow brushed against the windshield like salt. His house sat at the end of a quiet street, the porch light glowing against the frost. When he'd first bought it, he painted the door blue because Sarah, 8 years old then, said blue meant happy. I'd believed her. Sarah came running when we rolled in. She threw herself into Ethan's lap, giggling. "Daddy, I made you a picture." She held up a drawing of a house with 3 stick figures under a yellow sun. "It's beautiful," he said, voice cracking. Cassandra wasn't home. A note waited on the counter. "Soup in the fridge. Don't wait up." Her handwriting was too neat to be kind. I heated the soup anyway, the sound of the burner filling the quiet. "She's working late again," I said. "She says the market's crazy." Ethan replied, "She might be right." He tried to sound neutral, but there was a sadness in his voice that broke something small inside me. We ate in the living room, Sarah sitting cross-legged on the rug, pretending to be the waitress at a restaurant that only served soup. She chattered about school until the clock struck 8. When the dishes were washed and the lights dimmed, Cassandra came home. She smelled like winter air and perfume that didn't belong to this house. She kissed the air near Ethan's cheek. "We really need to talk about selling," she said. "Not now," he replied. She turned to me with a tight smile. "You agree, don't you, Grace? He can't keep up the place like this." "The house is fine," I said. "Maybe for now," she answered, grabbing her purse. "But reality wins eventually." Then she left again. Sarah watched from the hallway, her little hands gripping the railing. I walked over and knelt beside her. "Bedtime," I said gently. She nodded but didn't move. "Grandma," she whispered. "Mommy said I have to tell people Daddy hit her." My chest went cold. "Sweetheart, why would she say that?" "She said the judge will believe me because I'm a kid, but Daddy didn't hurt anyone. He can't even stand long enough to yell." I brushed her hair back, trying to keep my voice steady. "You don't ever have to lie, Sarah. Not for anyone." Her eyes filled with tears. "Will Daddy go to jail?" "No," I said, forcing a calm I didn't feel. "Not while I'm here." When she finally slept, I walked down the hallway. Ethan sat by the living room window, staring at the snow. The light from the street made him look younger, like the man he'd been before the fall. "Everything okay?" he asked. I hesitated. "She's planning something," I said. "Be ready." He nodded slowly. "You always know, don't you?" "I try," I said. "Sometimes too late." After he went to bed, I stood in the kitchen, washing dishes that were already clean. My reflection stared back from the dark window, older, tired, but steady. I thought about all the years I'd spent avoiding courtrooms, about the promise I made to never pick up another case. Some promises aren't meant to last forever. I dried my hands and opened my phone. My thumb hovered over a number I hadn't dialed in 20 years. When the line picked up, a familiar voice filled the static. "Marcus Shaw," he said. "It's Grace," I replied. "I need your help." He didn't ask why. He never had to. "Where do we start?" I looked out at the snow piling against the porch, each flake erasing what came before. "With the truth," I said. "Always with the truth." The next morning, snow pressed against my shop windows like a secret trying to get in. I opened late, letting the quiet stretch a little longer. The coffee was strong enough to wake ghosts. I didn't need it for caffeine. I needed it for courage. When I called Marcus, he answered before the second ring. "Morning, counselor," he said. "Don't call me that." I told him, "I'm not one anymore." He chuckled. "Once a shark, always a shark." By noon, he was at Ethan's house, coat dusted with snow, notebook in hand. The kitchen table became our war room. Ethan looked uneasy watching us spread papers everywhere, deeds, receipts, tax returns. His hands rested on the armrests of his chair like he wanted to push away from all of it. "I just want to live quietly," he said. Quiet doesn't stop people like Cassandra, I replied. Truth does. Marcus adjusted his glasses. Your mother's right. The house deed predates your marriage. Mortgage paid from your personal account. It's clean. Ethan nodded, though his shoulders stayed tense. She'll twist something. She always does. I reached across and touched his wrist. Let her try. After Marcus left, I called Dr. Lynn Crawford, a friend from my old legal days, a child psychologist who still believed honesty could heal. When I told her what Sarah had confessed, she didn't even hesitate. Coaching a child to lie is abuse, she said. I'll petition to act as guardian ad litem. The court will take that seriously. Thank you, I whispered. That night, after Ethan and Sarah had gone to bed, I sat alone in the living room. The lamplight pooled around the laptop like an interrogation spotlight. I opened the file Sarah had sent me, the recording. Cassandra's voice spilled out. Sugar and venom. Just tell the judge Daddy scared you. It's not lying, it's helping Mommy. Sarah's little voice followed, trembling. But he didn't hurt anyone. Stop arguing, Cassandra snapped. You want Mommy to be happy, right? I couldn't listen to the rest. I stopped the playback and sat very still. The house felt smaller, the air heavier. I copied the file twice, naming one evidence and one hope, because I needed both. The next day, Marcus came back with photos. Cassandra in a black coat, laughing with a man outside a restaurant. His hand rested on her waist. The timestamp showed last Thursday. That's Patrick Lang, Marcus said. Real estate developer. Neck deep in lawsuits. 2 of his properties just foreclosed. So that's where the money talk came from, I said. She's planning to sell Ethan's house to cover his debts. Marcus nodded. And she's arrogant enough to leave a trail. I stared at the photo until my coffee went cold. Then we make sure the trail leads straight to the courtroom. That evening, Cassandra came home early. I was in the kitchen, sorting mail. She leaned against the doorway, coat still on, face unreadable. You've been busy, she said. So have you, she tilted her head. Ethan told you we're separating? I read between the lines, I said. You should stop giving Sarah things she can't carry. Her lips curved, but not kindly. Children say all sorts of things. Not when they're coached to, I said. I have proof. The smirk faded. For a heartbeat, I saw the fear she'd been hiding behind polish. You're bluffing. Try me, I said quietly. She turned to leave, but not before spitting. You always hated me, because you couldn't control me. No, I said, because I saw what you were long before Ethan did. Her heels clicked down the hall. When the door slammed, I exhaled, realizing my hands were shaking. I hadn't felt that old courtroom pulse in years, the mix of anger and focus that meant war was coming. Later, Ethan wheeled into the kitchen. She said we're done, he said flatly. I know. I said, but she's wrong. This family isn't. He looked at me for a long time, eyes glossy with the kind of exhaustion you can't sleep off. Mom, he said, you can't keep carrying everyone. I smiled, though my throat ached. That's what mothers do. Over the next few days, I gathered everything: property records, medical affidavits, bank statements. Marcus filed background reports, while Dr. Ryan Crawford met with Sarah at school, documenting her anxiety. Every piece fit neatly into a picture Cassandra would hate. On Friday, a courier delivered an envelope, divorce papers. Cassandra had filed first, citing irreconcilable differences. I signed the receipt, shut the door, and stood in silence. The sound of the heater kicking on was the only applause this moment would get. Ethan watched me from his chair. So it's real now. It's been real, I said. Now it's official. He sighed. You shouldn't have to do this again." "Neither should you," I replied, "but here we are." That night, I went back to my shop and dug out an old box from the storage closet, the one that held my law license, bar ID, and a framed clipping from a case headline that once called me the Lioness of Ohio Law. I'd forgotten the weight of those words until I held the frame again. The glass was cracked, but the title still shone. I ironed my old Navy suit, the one I'd sworn I'd never wear again. The fabric smelled faintly of mothballs and memory. I laid it over a chair beside the briefcase that now held everything: evidence, motions, and Sarah's crayon drawing of the house with the blue door. When morning came, I woke before the alarm. I tied my hair back the same way I used to before trials, slow and precise. The mirror didn't lie. Older, thinner, lines sharper. But the eyes, those were the same. Marcus pulled up outside, idling at the curb. He rolled down the window as I stepped into the cold. "You sure you want to walk back into that ring?" he asked. "Want?" I said, pulling my coat tighter. "No, but some fights don't wait for volunteers." He smiled. "That's the grace I remember." We drove in silence until the courthouse came into view, a square of stone and memory. My pulse quickened, but it wasn't fear. It was purpose. As we parked, I looked up at the flag snapping in the wind and whispered, "Time to remind them who I am." Marcus turned off the engine. "And who's that?" I opened the door, stepping into the cold. The woman they should never have underestimated. The courthouse smelled like polished wood and nerves. I hadn't been inside one in 20 years, yet everything felt exactly the same. The hum of whispered tension, the echo of heels, the stale coffee sitting too long on a clerk's desk. Ethan's hand gripped the wheel of his chair tighter than usual. "You don't have to do this," he said quietly. "I do," I replied. "For Sarah. For you." Cassandra was already there, sitting beside her lawyer, Alan Reeves, a man whose smile could sell lies wholesale. She wore a black dress that probably cost more than the truth ever would. When she saw me walk in carrying my briefcase, her expression faltered for half a second. Then she crossed her legs and pretended not to care. Judge Morales entered. His gaze found me immediately. "Counsel Monroe?" he said, surprise flickering before he masked it. "I was told you left the bar years ago." "I did," I said, rising, "but the bar never left me." He hid a small smile, then nodded. "Proceed." Alan started first, oozing confidence. "Your Honor, my client has supported her disabled husband for years, managing finances, maintaining the home, and raising their daughter. She seeks an equitable division of assets, including the marital home." I stood. "The home in question was purchased 3 years before the marriage," I said, "fully paid off by Mr. Monroe from his personal earnings. The title has never changed hands." Alan waved a paper dramatically. "Bills paid from joint accounts prove commingling. That makes the property marital." I smiled. "Not when the payments are utilities, and not when the mortgage was closed before the joint account existed." I handed the judge the statement copies. "Filed this morning." Alan's jaw tightened. Cassandra shifted in her seat. Then came the part that mattered most. I looked toward the back of the courtroom, where Sarah sat with Dr. Crawford. The little girl's legs swung beneath the bench, nervous but brave. "Your Honor," I said, "this case is not just about ownership, it's about integrity." Alan objected, muttering about grandstanding. The judge raised a hand. Overruled, continue. I opened a folder and laid a small recording device on the table. "This is a voicemail sent to me by the Monroe's daughter. The timestamp and source were verified by the carrier. I'd like to enter it as Exhibit B." Alan jumped up. "Objection! Illegally obtained." The recording came from the child's phone. I said. Her guardian ad litem has approved its submission. I gestured to Dr. Crawford, who rose and confirmed. The judge nodded. Admitted. I pressed play. The courtroom filled with Cassandra's voice, smooth, coaxing, venomous. Just tell the judge Daddy scared you. It's not lying, it's helping Mommy. Sarah's tiny protest echoed next, trembling. But he didn't do anything. Stop arguing, Cassandra snapped. When the recording ended, silence hung heavy as snow. Ethan bowed his head. Cassandra's lawyer leaned toward her, whispering frantically. She whispered back. Too late. I faced the judge. Your Honor, my client has been slandered by the one person who vowed to stand beside him. The child you just heard is living proof of that manipulation. This isn't about revenge, it's about protecting what's rightfully his, and giving that little girl the stability her mother took away. Cassandra stood, voice cracking. She's lying. You all think I'm a monster. No one had to think it. I said softly. You proved it yourself. She turned to Ethan. You'll regret this. Both of you. He looked up for the first time. Eyes steady. No, Cass, I already did. The judge adjusted his glasses, his tone calm but final. The evidence is clear. The property remains Mr. Monroe's separate asset. Primary custody is granted to the father, with supervised visitation for the mother. This court will also order counseling for the child. He struck his gavel once. The sound was clean, merciless, and freeing all at once. Cassandra sank into her chair, face pale. Alan began gathering papers without meeting her eyes. Dr. Crawford put an arm around Sarah, whispering something that made her smile through tears. I packed my briefcase slowly. Every motion felt heavier and lighter at the same time. When I turned, the judge caught my gaze. Good to see you practicing again, Grace, he said quietly. Just temporary, I replied. Justice needed a substitute. He smiled faintly. The court could use more of that. Outside, the air bit my cheeks, sharp with cold and relief. Marcus waited by the steps, hands in his coat pockets. You did it, he said. I looked back at the courthouse doors, still swinging. We did it. He nodded toward the parking lot where Ethan was helping Sarah into the car. You think she'll be okay? She will, I said. She knows the truth now. That's more than most kids ever get. As we drove away, snow began to fall again, soft and endless. For the first time in years, it didn't feel like something burying me. It felt like something letting me start over. When we got home, the house felt different. It wasn't bigger or brighter, just lighter, as if something poisonous had finally left. The blue door creaked when I opened it, same as always. But this time it sounded like a sigh of relief. Ethan wheeled himself inside and stopped by the window. The afternoon sun hid his face, and for the first time in years, he didn't look trapped inside his body. Sarah ran past him, giggling, her coat half unzipped, snow still clinging to her boots. She stopped in front of her drawing, the one taped to the fridge, and traced the stick figures with her fingertip. Can we paint the door again? She asked. Ethan smiled. Any color you want. Blue, she said instantly. Happy blue. Marcus followed me into the kitchen carrying a grocery bag. You need something other than adrenaline for dinner, he said. He started unpacking noodles, sauce, a loaf of bread. For once, I didn't argue. As the water boiled, Ethan came up beside me. I thought winning would feel louder, he said. It never does. I replied. Real justice is quiet. It just settles the air. He was quiet for a while. You were amazing in there. Mom, you haven't changed. I've changed plenty, I said, smiling faintly. I just remembered who I was. Outside, Snow melted from the eaves in thin silver lines. Sarah's laughter carried from the living room as she told Marcus her plan to paint glitter fish on the mailbox. The sound filled every empty corner of that house. After dinner, I stood on the porch alone. The street was calm, lights glowing in windows up and down the block. I thought about all the years I'd spent hiding from the thing I was best at, thinking peace meant silence. But peace isn't the absence of noise, it's the presence of truth. Behind me. Ethan's voice drifted through the open door. "Mom, you coming in?" "In a minute," I said. I looked up at the night sky, at the faint breath of snow beginning to fall again, soft and forgiving. Then I whispered to the dark, "Justice doesn't retire. It just waits for someone brave enough to bring it home." And for the first time in a long while, I finally felt home too. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy these family drama and revenge stories, please subscribe and join me for more every day.